Greetings. Father Mark signing on, continuing the course on medieval church history. The last video, for reasons that I don't understand, the computer just stopped. So sorry about that. We'll continue. We're reading from the Quran, chapter 19, which is titled Mary, after what the person we think of as the Blessed Mother, but the Muslims just acknowledge her as the mother of Jesus. And so 19 is about Zechariah. It's corresponding to the story we have in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1. And so we continue. O Zechariah, we give you good news of a boy whose name is John, a name we have not given to anyone before. He said, Zechariah said, My Lord, how can I have a boy when my wife is barren and I have become decrepit with old age? He said, So will it be, your Lord says. It is easy for me, just as I created you before you were nothing. He said, My Lord, give me a sign. He said, Your sign is that you will not speak to the people for 3 nights straight. And he came out to his people from the sanctuary and signaled to them to praise morning and evening. O John, hold firmly to the scripture. And we gave him wisdom from childhood, and sympathy from us in purity, and he was devout. And mentioned in the scripture Mary, when she withdrew from her family to an eastern location, she secluded herself from them, and we sent to her our spirit, and he appeared to her as an immaculate human. She said, I take protection from you in the compassionate, should you be righteous. He said, I am only the messenger of your Lord, to give you the gift of a pure boy. She said, How can I have a son, when no man has touched me, and I was never unchaste? He said, Thus says your Lord, it is easy for me, and we will make him a sign to humanity, and mercy from us. It is a matter already decided. She conceived him and withdrew him to a remote place. Then she came to her people carrying him. They said, O Mary, you have done something horrible. O sister of Aaron, your father was not an indecent man, and your mother was not unchaste. So she pointed to him. They said, How can we speak to an infant in the crib? He said, I am the servant of God. He gave me the scripture, and he made me a prophet. And he made me a blessing wherever I may be, and has enjoined on me prayer and charity so long as I live. And peace is upon me the day I was born, and the day I die, and the day I get resurrected alive. That is Jesus, Son of Mary, the word of truth, about which they doubt. It is not for God to have a child. Glory be to him. When he decides on an issue, he says to it, Be, and it is. God is my Lord and your Lord, so worship him. This is the straight path. Okay, so these are excerpts from the Quran, chapter 19. Verses 2 through 63, but I kind of skipped around, so, for the sake of time. But you get the point. So Muslims acknowledge, it's in the Quran, they acknowledge the existence of Jesus. They acknowledge that he has a special place, as well as John the Baptist, but they reject the divinity of Christ. So they're okay with miracles, but not with Jesus being divine. So never in the Quran is Jesus referred to as Son of God. He's always referred to as Son of Mary. The relationship among the peoples of the book, Jews, Christians, Muslims, has loomed large in history in the Middle Ages, as well as to our own day. Tragically, more often than not, the relationship has been adversarial. And that is, well, that is what it is. Now, to the details of Muhammad's life. When Muhammad was age 2, in the year 572, another Byzantine versus Persia war began. It lasted 19 years until 591. As in previous conflicts, the issues can be reduced to attempts by both sides to control Caucasia to the north and the trade routes of Arabia to the south of their blocks of territory in the middle. By way of lead up, again, nothing just happened, so the lead up to this, in 568, the Byzantines stoked a proxy war against Persia using Georgia and Colchis in Caucasia. It's along the southeastern coast of the Black Sea. By 570, Persia retaliated against Byzantine interest in southern Arabia by invading and destroying the Christian Yemeni kingdom and restoring the Himmerite kingdom. The following year, 571, on the Persian Gulf side of Arabia, on the Iran side of Arabia, Lakhmid Zoroastrian allies, so these are Arabs living in Arabia, but they're allied with the Persians, the Zoroastrians. They attacked Byzantine Greek interest in Iraq. Remember, at this period, Iraq was Mesopotamia. It was part of the Byzantine Empire, and it was Christian. The Byzantines struck back at 572. They employed other Arabs, the Ghassanid Arabs in central Arabia, but who were their ally, with the Greek allies, to hit the Lakhmids on their western flank. And in the north, in Caucasia, they funded an independence uprising in Armenia against Persia. And it went on and on and on like this for 19 years. From when Muhammad was age 2 until he was age 21. He, and those who would later follow him into battle, grew to adulthood with Arabia being manipulated in this way as a battleground between Christian Greeks and Zoroastrian Persians. So keep that in mind. Muhammad's mother died when he was 7. He was taken in by his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, who died 2 years later when Muhammad was 9. Muhammad was then given to his uncle, Abu Talib. As all young men in his time and place, he became involved in the caravan trade. He built a good reputation, so that at age 25, his 4th maternal cousin, a wealthy widow named Khadijah, entrusted him to take her items on a caravan. I mean, as part of a larger caravan, but he would be the one seen after her items, all the way up to from Mecca to Damascus in Syria, dispose of the goods, purchase something else, bring it back for resale. And he did. Now, to align this with what we've covered before, at this point in the year 590, Pope Gregory the Great was elected Pope Gregory I, and we devoted a couple of sessions to him earlier. 5 years later, in 595, though Muhammad was 25 and Khadijah was 40, Khadijah proposed marriage, and he accepted. They had 4 daughters who survived to adulthood, the most famous of which was Fatima, for whom later Muslim conquerors named the town in the Iberian Peninsula where Mary appeared in 1917. They also had 2 sons who died in infancy. Muhammad's marriage to the wealthy Khadijah freed him from the necessity of earning a living, meaning he didn't have to travel with the caravans anymore. He then indulged his taste for solitude and meditation by frequent visits to mountain caves for prayer, as his 3rd wife Aisha relayed in the hadith we quoted in the last session. Again, aligning this with what we covered before, in the year 601, St. Isidore followed his brother St. Leander as Archbishop of Seville. The following year, 602, when Muhammad was aged 32, yet another Greco-Persian war broke out. Once again, Caucasia to the north and Arabia to the south were unwilling, coerced participants in what turned out to be a 26-year power struggle. To simplify, a depressing and sanguinary generational conflict. The Persians won the first phase, the Greeks won the second. But it left both materially ruined and open to invasion by Islam, only 5 years after it ended. So it ended in 628. Muhammad died in 632. And then after his death, his followers invaded almost simultaneously. I mean, not the exact same day, but almost simultaneously invaded the Byzantine Empire to the west and the Persians to the east. But rewinding, so 602, the war began. During the war, on October 5th, 610, the Byzantine Emperor Phocas was assassinated, and he was replaced by the son of the Byzantine Exarch of Africa. He took the imperial name Heraclius, so that's their version of Hercules. This is Emperor Hercules. Heraclius would be the first Byzantine emperor to face Islam in battle. In the same year, 610, Muhammad had what Muslims believe was his first revelation through the angel Jibreel, which we've already discussed. I read one section from the hadith of his third wife, so here's a briefer summary in the Quran, chapter 53, beginning at verse 5. Quote, Muhammad does not speak out of his own fancy. This is an inspired revelation. He is taught by one who is powerful and mighty. Jibreel stood on the uppermost horizon. Then, drawing near, he came down within 2 bow lengths, or even closer, and revealed to his servant that which he revealed. End quote. Muhammad first confided to his wife, Khadijah. She was his first convert. She never questioned his claim and remained for the rest of her life his strongest supporter. Muhammad's second convert was Ali ibn Abu Talib, Ali the son of Abu Talib. He was a cousin of Muhammad by birth. Later, he became Muhammad's son-in-law when he married Fatima. Ali became, the Sunni Muslims recognize Ali as the 4th caliph. However, Shiite Muslims regard Ali as the immediate successor of Muhammad. So Shiite Islam is named after Ali, the Muslims of Ali. And so we'll meet him again. We'll meet Ali again. Muhammad's third convert was a guy named Zaid. Zaid was a slave in Khadijah's household, whom Muhammad later freed and legally adopted as his own son. Zaid became a commander in the early Muslim army during the lifetime of Muhammad, and he died in battle later against the Greeks, but it was in Arabia. He died in September of 629 while Muhammad was still alive. Muhammad's fourth convert was Abu Bakr Abdullah ibn Uthman. Just Abu Bakr is better known as Abu Bakr. He was a wealthy merchant. Later, he became Muhammad's father-in-law. So one of Muhammad's wives was Abu Bakr's daughter, Aisha, whom we've already met. It was her hadith that I quoted in the last session. And after Muhammad's death in 632, Abu Bakr became the first caliph, the first caliph recognized by Sunni Muslims. For 3 years, these remained his only converts, until, he claimed, the angel came to him again and ordered him to preach publicly. What he preached was submission. Islam just means submission. So it was submission to Allah, the one true God, in keeping with their Abrahamic heritage. Those who followed him in this no longer would they be called simply Hanif, those who decline to worship foreign gods, but instead they would be called Muslims, those who have submitted. So in the year 613, he went public with his revival of Abrahamic monotheism. He continued to claim revelations, sometimes from Jibreel, and once during a trip to heaven, which I'll mention shortly. The heart of his preaching was that there is only one God, Allah, who revealed himself to Abraham centuries earlier. Revival of Abrahamic monotheism for Muhammad consisted of 5 pillars. Pillar 1 is the Shahada, which means to witness. This is the Islamic profession of faith. Quote, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger," or prophet. The 2 statements of the Shahada are both in the Quran, but not side by side. For example, in the Quran, chapter 21, verse 25, quote, "We never sent a messenger before you without inspiring him that there is no God but I, so worship me." This is a revelation from Allah. The Quran, chapter 3, verses, the whole section is like verses 2 through 19, but just for the starting at verse 2. Allah, there is no God but He, the living, the eternal. He sent down to you the book of the truth, confirming what came before it, as He sent down the Torah and the gospel. So, again, the connection between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Pillar 2 is the Salah, meaning connection, and that is the way they describe daily prayer, is the connection to Allah. There are different types of Islam, the Sunni, the Shia, as well as others, internal differences within them. We're certainly not going to, we're not, they differ in detail regarding the posture and the number of prostrations, but all of them are commanded to daily prayer. An example in the Quran, chapter 17, beginning at verse 78. Quote, "Perform the prayer at the decline of the sun until the darkness of the night, and the Quran at dawn." The Quran at dawn is witnessed. "And keep vigil with it during parts of the night as an extra prayer. Perhaps your Lord will raise you to a laudable position." Then skipping down, same chapter, verse 17, but skipping down to verse 110. "Say, call to him God, or call him the most merciful, whichever name you use. To him belong the best of names. And be neither loud in your prayer, nor silent in your prayer, but follow a course in between. And say, praise be to God, who has not begotten a son, nor has he a partner in sovereignty, nor has he an ally out of weakness. Glorify him constantly." So, again, repudiating the divinity of Christ, that, Jesus was not the Son of God. Pillar 3, it's rendered in English, it's SAWM. I think it's Sawam, but that means fasting. It's the fasting. This is during the month of Ramadan. That's the 9th month. The Quran explains this in chapter 2, beginning at verse 183. Quote, "O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you, as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may become righteous. Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed, guidance for humanity, and clear proofs of the guidance, and the criterion. Whoever of you witnesses the month shall fast it, but whoever is sick or traveling, then a number of other days. God intends ease for you, and he does not intend difficulty for you, so that you may complete the number and glorify God for having guided you, so that you may be thankful. Eat and drink until the white thread of dawn can be distinguished from the black thread. Then complete the fast until nightfall. So in other words, you fast during the daylight hours. Pillar 4, number 4, zakat. Zakat means that which purifies. It is their way, the Muslim way of describing almsgiving or charity. Quran, chapter 9, verse 60. Alms are for the poor and the destitute and those who administer them, and for reconciling hearts, and for freeing slaves, and for those in debt, and in the path of God, and for the traveler in need. An obligation from God. God is all-knowing, most wise. Connected to this, about the way of life. So you may hear in some public discourses about Islam, we've even had our former president say it, that Islam means peace. Well, as we've seen, the word Islam means submission, but as far as the peace there is a passage in the Quran that that they would point to for this. So the Quran, chapter 25, verse 63. The servants of the merciful are those who walk the earth in humility, and when the ignorant address them, they say salam, which means peace. And skipping down to verse 67, and those who, when they spend, are neither wasteful nor stingy, but choose a middle course between them. And those who do not implore, besides Allah, any other God, and do not kill the soul which God has made sacred, except in the pursuit of justice. And do not commit adultery. Whoever does that will face penalties. And those who do not bear false witness, and when they come across indecencies, they pass by with dignity. So there is that part of the Quran about peace and this kind of code of behavior. Yet, as we'll see later, there are other parts of the Quran which elaborate on the role of warfare in the spread of the faith. So they're both there. So again, I'll just read the passages and leave that. I mean, I'm not doing anything more than that. But since much of the Islamic relationship with Christianity during the medieval period was characterized by violence, it is an issue that we have to address. 614, the year 614, the eternal war between the Greeks and the Persians took a major turn against the Greeks when the Persians captured Damascus in Syria and Jerusalem in the Holy Land from the Byzantines and took the Holy Cross as loot. The result was that the Christian population, remember that was all part of the empire, the Roman Empire. So when that converted, they converted. So Syria, the Lebanon, the Holy Land, we converted. They were Christian, and so here they're conquered. The result was that the Christian population of Syria, Lebanon, what is now Jordan and the Holy Land, were under the control of pagans, the Persian Zoroastrian fire worshippers. This has to be kept in mind when explaining the ready acceptance of Islam by this population later in history, when it was clear to them that the Greeks could no longer defend them. The Christian population felt they had to decide where to place their loyalty. From their perspective, Islam at least was monotheistic, and they claimed descent from Abraham, and they did not require repudiating Jesus. In fact, many of the Christians in that area were Nestorians, so they already believed about Jesus the same things that the Muslims did, that he existed, he was a prophet, he had a special role, but he was not divine. And they saw that so the alternative is living under fire worshiping pagans. So that's the choice. That's what they selected. In the year 615, Muhammad began preaching So he started out as, worship Allah, the God of Abraham. So in 615, he expanded on the preaching, began asserting that worship of false gods was evil. And this is in keeping with his approach of reviving Abrahamic monotheism. Muhammad justified his denunciation by referring to Abraham. In the Quran, chapter 21, beginning at verse 65, Abraham said, speaking to idolaters of his time, "You know very well that these gods cannot speak. How can you worship what can neither benefit nor harm you instead of God? Shame on you and on the things you worship instead of God. Have you no sense?" End quote. The problem, as we covered in the first part of this unit, is that the center of pre-Islamic Arab religion was the Kaaba, the shrine in Mecca. Muhammad's own tribe was not happy with him. When he, they didn't really have a problem with him preaching about Allah, the one God, because they had Hanif in their midst. But now he's saying, to go to the Kaaba and worship these idols is evil. So now that's a problem. He was safe from attack at the moment because Arab ethics of the day would require his clan, the Banu Hashim, to avenge any attack on him to defend their own honor. But this is not going to last. In the year 616, the Persians, maintaining the initiative after taking Syria and the Holy Land, moved from the Holy Land. They marched south along the Mediterranean coast, so they marched through Gaza, which is now the Gaza Strip, into the Sinai Peninsula and into Egypt. By the year 616, the Persians had conquered Egypt, which also had been Christian. It was part of the empire, so we converted it, to Christianity. And as with the conquest of Syria, Lebanon, the Holy Land, keep this in mind, among the general population, none of them enjoyed being governed by these fire-worshipping pagans. And when it's clear the Greeks weren't coming back, the Byzantines weren't coming back, Islam did not require them to deny Christ, merely that he be regarded as a prophet, not the Son of God. And that alternative, as opposed to fire-worshipping pagans, made rationalization of submission to Islam easier. In the year 619, the northern Persian army, the ones with the Caucasus region, conquered the southern coast of the Black Sea and reached the Aegean, meaning the northern coast of present-day Turkey, placing them on the opposite side of the Bosporus from the Byzantine capital of Constantinople. In the same year, Muhammad's wife died, Khadijah. While she lived, he was faithful to her. He took no other wives or mistresses. Even though pre-Islamic Arab culture was polygamous, it was completely accepted to have multiple wives. Muhammad continued this practice after her death. The Quran allows Muslims to have 4 wives. So the Quran, chapter 4, verse 3. "And if you fear that you cannot act equitably toward orphans, then marry such women as seem good to you, 2 and 3 and 4. But if you fear that you will not do justice between them, then marry only one, or what your right hand possesses." That's a figure of speech meaning a slave. A slave is a slave girl, is what your right hand possesses. This is more proper, that you may not deviate from the right course. End quote. Now, Muhammad was not limited to 4 wives, as we learn this in the Quran, chapter 33, beginning at verse 50. Quote, "O Prophet, we have permitted to you your wives to whom you have given their dowries, and those you already have, as granted to you by Allah, and the daughters of your paternal uncle, and the daughters of your paternal aunts, and the daughters of your maternal uncle, and the daughters of your maternal aunts who emigrated with you, and, meaning from Mecca to Medina, as we'll cover in the future, and a believing woman who has offered herself to the prophet, if the prophet desires to marry her, exclusively for you and not for other believers. We know what we have ordained for them regarding their wives and those their right hand possesses. Again, that's slaves. This is to spare you any difficulty. Muhammad would eventually have a total of 14 wives, 11 plus 2 concubines at one time. Yet with all of these women, he never had a son survive to adulthood. 3 of them, he had 3 sons that died in infancy. And that fact would shape the history of Islam really to our own day, because when he died, there was the whole succession, like who is his heir? Is it Ali, who was his son-in-law, married Fatima, or Abu Bakr, who was the 4th convert? So the Sunnis recognize Abu Bakr, whereas the Shiites recognize Ali, and that rift is still present in the world. In March of the year 620, Muhammad met 7 men from Yathrib. Today that's Medina, 250 miles north of Mecca. They came to Mecca to go on a pilgrimage to the Kaaba. Now for them, a pilgrimage was visiting the pagan idols. After a series of meetings with him, they embraced Islam. They submitted. They submitted to him as, well, to Allah, and to him as the prophet, calling them back to monotheism. The following year, they brought more, who also converted. Muhammad found that those from Yathrib responded better to his teaching, since they had no investment in the Kaaba to protect, and could regard him as being simply in continuity with the Hanif. Muhammad then fixed his hopes on Yathrib. He sent his followers in small groups to that city so as not to arouse attention. In the year 621, Muhammad claimed to have an experience that accounts for the Islamic reverence for the city of Jerusalem. It is called the Isra and Miraj, or the night journey. It is described in the Quran, chapter 17, in 111 verses. Too long to quote here, but to summarize, Muhammad said, and Muslims believe, that he was at prayer in Mecca when Jibreel, the angel Gabriel, brought him a horse. The horse's name was Barak. And he mounted the horse, and on that horse was transported from Mecca to Jerusalem, landing on the Temple Mount. From there, he was brought to heaven to converse with Adam, Abraham, Moses, Jesus. And they, well, anyway, this is a mosque. There's if you see pictures of Jerusalem, the mosque with the gold dome on it, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that's over. They have declivities in the ground, semicircular declivities, which Muslims believe are the horseshoes prints of Barak. The following year, 622, is the Hegira, the year of flight. That's Hegira, meaning the year of Muhammad's, when he departed from Mecca, where even his own tribe was turning on him and persecuting his followers because he was denouncing the paganism of the Kaaba. So he left and went to Medina. This is considered year 1 on the Muslim calendar. The actual date that Muhammad personally fled Mecca from Medina, he went with Abu Bakr, his 4th convert. on our calendars is June 28th, 622. And that is, the date one. That's the beginning of the Muslim calendar, the year of flight, the Hegira, the year of flight. After wandering around in the desert, eluding bandits who planning to kill him for his denunciation of the Kaaba, Muhammad and Abu Bakr arrived in Yathrib on September 24th, 622. He then renamed Yathrib as Medina al-Nabi, meaning the Prophet's city. And it remains one of the holy places of Islam. In Medina, he was so widely accepted that he could open his first masjid, a place of prostration. And that entered eventually, from French, then to English. That, even though it doesn't look it, that is the origin of our word mosque. From the French rendering of the Arabic, then an English rendering of the French for this, so that when a masjid is mosque. So it's not church, like ecclesia for us is the church. For them, the masjid that's the place of prostration. Muhammad preached here at this masjid on a regular basis. He modeled the daily prostrations, the triple prostration 5 times a day, which externalized the total submission of the individual to the will of Allah that gave the faith its name. And that still is the basic form of Islamic worship. Converts came into Medina by the hundreds, drawn by his assertion of returning to their ancient religious heritage of monotheism as taught by Abraham. Okay. So we will pause there and continue. Next time we'll pick up with his Medina period, and then we'll see how the violence began, when the violence began and how it began. And again, we'll just, we're not judging any, I'm just going to read you the ancient text and leave it at that to configure it in history. So for the moment, thank you for your attention. This session is adjourned.